Shabbat Shalom, everybody. First of all, thank you very much to Molly and Sammy Miller. They are some of our first musical guests tonight. Thank you so much for bringing us into Shabbat with some beautiful music. They are the founders of Zoom Tunes, so you can check them out online. Thank you for being a part of our service tonight. And thank you to everybody for joining us. Shabbat Shalom. We're going to begin our service with Shalom Alechem. If you're following along in your Siddur Lev Shalem, you can turn to page 73 and we'll sing Shalom Alechem together. Shalom Alechem, Malachei Shareim, Malachei Elyonim, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Alechem, Malachei Shareim, Malachei Elyonim, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Alechem, Malachei Shareim, Malachei Elyonim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hayay Boachem Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Baruch Hu Nil Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Hayay Baruch Hu Nil Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeichen Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeichen Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tzeichen Shalom, Malachei Shalom, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So at the Ted and Hedy Orden and Family Friday Night Live, we like to celebrate some of the best music in our community. And we're excited tonight to have Asher Shasho Levi as one of our musical guests. I'm going to pass it over to Asher, who's going to tell us a little bit about the melody we're going to be doing for Yedid Nefesh. So Asher, take it away. Asher, you are muted. We can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Good. So wonderful to be joining everyone for this celebration of Shabbat. So this melody for Yedid Nefesh that I'm going to be singing, hopefully you'll get a little bit of it by the time that I'm done. I'm going to do just the first few stanzas and the last few stanzas. It's one of the many melodies for Yedid Nefesh that exists among the Jewish communities of Morocco. And there are different melodies for Yedid Nefesh, which is a piyut, a holy song that have different purposes. So this is one of the melodies that is used to usher in Shabbat, whereas there are other melodies that are sung among the Shirat HaBakashot, which is a beautiful cycle of songs, of holy mystical songs that are sung in the winter months, in the wee hours of the morning on Shabbat. So between midnight and say 4 in the morning in different Sephardic communities, you have cycles of these bakashot, these supplications of yearning to be close to God that are sung. And Yedid Nefesh is one of them. But this melody is specific for Shabbat, and it comes from Morocco. Yedid Nefesh Abhara Haman, Yedid Nefesh Abhara Haman, Mishoch Abdach Il Ritzonach, Mishoch Abdach Il Ritzonach, Yarus Abdach Kemo Ayel, Yarus Abdach Kemo Ayel, Ishtah Habeh Mul Hadach, Ishtah Habeh Mul Hadach, I'm going to pick it up at the later stanzas. Higalena. Higalena ufros habib. Higalena ufros habib. Allah yitsukat shilomach. Allah yitsukat shilomach. Yalili, 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 Another couple times.
Yasher Koach, Asher, thank you so much for sharing your wonderful talent and your spirit and helping to uplift our souls as we prepare to welcome in Shabbat with our Kabbalat Shabbat service. Traditionally, Psalms 95 through 99 and Psalm 29 before we have Lechadodi. Today we will rejoice in singing a new song to God, Shiru Ladonai Shir Chadash. We turn to page 13. Yalanai, 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 yalanai,
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I'm David Childs, cantorial intern at Sinai. And a quick word. Sometimes the idea that I don't know what will come next is very uncomfortable for me, and I can't always find clear, simple answers to some really large questions right now. And I imagine I'm not alone in this discomfort, because we're walking in the wilderness right now. And we have been for a while. And there's not an end in sight. And this also isn't the first time. So who can we look to for guidance? In our Parsha this week, Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, decides that he will leave the Israelites on their journey to the Promised Land and return home. And Moses doesn't like that. He begs Jethro to stay. You know the desert, he says. You are like eyes for us. Even Moses, a man of God, was afraid to lose Jethro's guidance. But did the children of Israel actually need his guidance? Or was his guidance merely a comfort for them? We know that God was their true guide and protector. So just as we found our way to the Promised Land by following God's path for us, so too can we find our way through the wilderness, this wilderness. And it won't be comfortable, but neither was it for those wanderers in the desert. Maybe we shouldn't be seeking comfort right now, though. Maybe the God of Israel, source of goodness and justice and mercy, will not give us clear, simple answers, but rather will lead us in a direction towards love for our neighbor, towards justice, and towards mercy and goodness. And we will be led out of this wilderness as long as we follow the right guide. And that's up to us. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, cantorial intern David Childs. Thank you very much. It is now my pleasure to invite Asher Shasho Levi to share his words for the Chadodi and to lead us in this beautiful song.
Thank you, Rabbi. So I'd like to share with everyone this melody for Lecha Dodi that it's one of the most ancient melodies actually that we have in the Sephardic tradition. This is what's called the Yerushalami Melody. It's the Jerusalem Sephardic tradition. It's shared with the other Ottoman Sephardic traditions, those of the Jews of the Jews of Syria, of Turkey, of Egypt, and this melody is said to actually date from the days of the composition of this piyut, when the Spanish rabbis came to Tzfat and conceived of this Kabbalat Shabbat service as a time when we could really enter into Shabbat with a spiritual commitment to really dedicating ourselves. Louder, can you hear me? We can really dedicating ourselves to feeling the entrance into Shabbat as a special time, a time of transition. And so these melodies were created to create a special mood of transition into Shabbat. And so all of these melodies have a special scale, a scale that is supposed to reflect this time. I'll play a little bit of it. It's called Makam Nawa. And Nawa is supposed to be like beauty, like the word Nava, Lebetecha Nava Kodesh, Adonai le'orech yamim, from the words of Tehillim. So we'll sing Lecha Dodi in this beautiful melody. One of the oldest melodies we have from the 15th century. as we greet the Shabbat. Boi b'shalom, aderet bala, גם בשמחה ובסעולה, תוך אמוני עם סעולה, בואי כלה, בואי חלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, לך דודי לקראת כלה, בני שבת נקבלה, אלליליה, יליליה, 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 יליליה,
Thank you so much, Asher. That was beautiful. From the 15th century now up to the 20th, we'll turn to page 28 and join together for the words Tzadik Katamar. This is what I was referring to with the 20th, because this melody was written indeed 5 centuries later. Tzadik Katamar.
Such beautiful music to help welcome in Kabbalat Shabbat, from the High German tradition with the music of Lewandowski to the beautiful Sephardic and North African melodies of Asher Levy. What a real treat to be able to finally be ready to rise for our call to worship. Every service that we have, morning and evening, has this question: Baruch Hu, will you bless God? Will we all stand up? Are we all ready to pray? And we all respond together, blessed is God, the one who is blessed. We turn ahead to page 39a. I ask you to please rise if able. Baruch Hu. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו, אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד, ברוך אתה אדוני, המריב ערבים. Page 40. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. 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 We continue on page 41. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ולכתך בדרך ובשוכבך וקומך, וקשרתם נאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך. למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר רוצה אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים, אני אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. ונאמר, כי פר אדוני את יעקב, וגלום יד חזק ממנו, ברוך אתה אדוני, כל ישראל.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. We'll take a few moments just to talk about the theme of this week's Friday Night Live, which is walking together in the wilderness. We are in the book of Bamidbar, and the thing, which means the wilderness. And this whole book of the Torah is about the Israelites walking together one step at a time on their journey, frankly, in a big circle, but ultimately to the land of Israel. The thing that really signifies what it means for them, for the Israelites, to walk together in the wilderness, is that in the very center of the camp is the Mishkan, is the portable tabernacle, which is the house of God. And every step of the way, no matter where the Israelites go, God is in the center of the camp. Now, what does it mean to have God be at the center of your community every single step you take? That is the book of Bamidbar. It's difficult. Sometimes it's full of blessing and it's full of joy. Sometimes it's challenging. It's challenging to be a community walking together with God in the middle. I want to mention the main purpose of the Mishkan. In my opinion, the Mishkan and the sacrifices are really there for forgiveness. When one makes a mistake, they can bring a sacrifice and ask God for forgiveness. And so in the middle of their camp, you have this portable forgiveness machine. And you have forgiveness being highlighted as the very central value of the Israelite camp. I think today, when we're mostly virtual, on Zoom and on emails and in texts, things get misread. We read, maybe the person who wrote these or is trying to express their ideas, we read ideas that they did not intend. And with all this miscommunication and virtual communication, I think we also, in order to walk together, need to take a lesson from the Israelite camp and walk with God at the center and with forgiveness in our center. So with that, Shabbat Shalom. I'm going to ask everybody who's with another person right now, you can put your arm around them. If you're on your own, you can kind of hold your heart and know that we're there with you. And we're going to sing the words Hashkivenu. This is our prayer asking God to please let us lie down in peace and rise in peace. So we'll call on Daniel Reitman, a musical regular at Friday Night Live, to lead us in Hashkivenu, and another song, Ufros, right afterwards.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom Behamidenu makenu lechaim 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 Shmor Tzeitenu Umboenu Lechaim Ushalom Me'ata ve'ad olam Fros aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha Ufros aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha Baruch atah Adonai Aporeh Sukkot Shalom Aleinu ve'Yaakov Amo Yisrael Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, Amen.
Thanks, Danny. I want everyone to please turn to which page? Page 46 for Vishamru. And please rise. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. Veshamru b'nei Yisrael et hashabat la'asot et hashabat ledorotam berit olam. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים והארץ, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, ושמרו בני ישראל השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם, לדורותם ברית עולם, לדורותם ברית עולם.
We remain standing middle of page 46. Yitgadal ve'yitkadash shemei Rabba ve'alma divra kirutei ve'amnich malchutei b'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael bagala bagala uvizman kari ve'imeru Amen Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach Le'alam le'almei almaya Yitbarach, Yitbarach, Ve'yishtabach, V'yitpar, V'yitromam, V'yitnaseh, Ve'yitadar, V'yitalev, V'yitalal, Shemei Nekudsha, Berichu, Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tush bechata v'nechemata, Damiran be'alma ve'imeru, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. You may be seated. Believe it or not, sometimes it makes me feel better knowing that the Israelites wandered through the wilderness, wandered through the desert for 40 years. And I say that because as a nation right now and as a Jewish community, and personally, I think many of us feel very lost. Lost in determining the various ways to stand with the Black community so that my support feels genuine and continuous and impactful. Lost as we reopen this country after 3 months of being safer at home. Lost, as Cantor Childs mentioned, as we're unsure of our next steps because the unknown is still very much there. And so B'nai Israel, the children of Israel, wandering through the desert for 40 years. No, I do not wish 40 years upon us. I don't even wish 40 more days, but it's somewhat comforting to know that the prayers of our ancestors were probably similar to our own, crying out to God for guidance and for clarity and for just a little nudge, or maybe a really big nudge to push us in the right direction. So in my own wandering this week, I was reminded of the following story that I wanted to share with you tonight. The story is about a wealthy man who had 3 sons, and he was trying to determine which son in which he should entrust his business. So he devised a test. He took his 3 sons to an empty room, and he said, "Fill this room to the best of your ability." And the first son got to work immediately. He called in bulldozers, and by the end of the day, the room was filled floor to ceiling with dirt. And it was pretty full. But the second son was given his chance. He brought in boxes and files and notepads, and by the end of the day, the room was filled floor to ceiling, wall to wall with paper. And the room looked pretty full. But the third son was given his chance, and he waited until night, and he slowly opened the door to the room, and the room was pitch black, and he reached into his pocket, took out one candle, one match, struck the match, and suddenly the room was filled with light. And let's just say that son won the contest. So yes, the room was filled with light, but I'm realizing more and more that in our wandering and in our feelings of being lost, I think it's going to take our own light to let us out of the darkness. Rabbi Israel Salanter was known for saying the following, and I take it to heart on this Shabbat. When I was a young man, I wanted to change the world, but I found it difficult to change the world. So then I decided to change my nation. And when I found that I couldn't change the nation, I began to focus on my town, and I couldn't change the town. And as an older man, then I tried to change my family. But now, as an old man, I realize that the only thing I can change for certain is myself. And if I had realized long ago that if I had changed myself, then I could have made an impact on my family. And then my family together, we could have made an impact on our town. And that impact would have changed the nation. And then I could indeed have changed the world. And so tonight, I pray for all of us that in our sentiments of feeling lost in this wandering, in this wilderness, may we first discover our personal light that will fill every segment of our soul, just like that empty room in the story. Light that shines in a way in which we learn how to change ourselves. Because with that start, with that spark, with that beginning, we might just have a chance of changing the world. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much, Rabbi Guzik, Yasher Koach. We'll rise as we begin the Amidah together on page 47 with the words, Adonai sfatai tiftach ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my mouth, that my lips shall declare your glory. Please rise. Na, 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 Adonai. Na, 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 sfatai tiftach. Na, 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 ufi agi. Ufi agi tehilatecha. We'll take a few moments of prayer and reflection. You can follow along with the words of the Amidah beginning on page 47 through page 52. You can close your eyes and take a few moments of private prayer, private contemplation. We'll join together at the end of the Amidah on the last page, page 52 in the middle, with the words Yihiyu l'ratzon imrefi. Yihiyu l'ratzon imrefi, imrefi, behegyon libi lefanecha. Yihiyu l'ratzon imrefi, imrefi, behegyon libi. Adonai Tzuri, Adonai Tzuri.
Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. So you probably know the story of the man who comes back from a trip to Israel, and his friend says, in a word, how was it? And he goes, good. And he said, okay, in 2 words. He goes, not good. The truth is that we all know, if you're going to summarize a lot of the state of the world at the moment in 2 words, you would automatically say not good. And I grant you, there are reasons to say that. Pandemic, demonstrations, looting, whatever. But I want to remind you, especially those of you, and I assume that's most of you who are younger, that you live in a curated world in a particular way. When I was a kid, you had a morning paper and an evening paper, and that was basically your news, although maybe you watched the news on television. And they used to tell us that the front page of the paper carried more information than a half an hour of television. But now, you don't get a morning paper and an evening paper. The evening paper is long since gone, and the morning paper is going the way of the dinosaurs. But instead, you get a constant stream of news. And one of the things about news is that gradual improvements don't make headlines. Things that are getting better in the world bit by bit, that's not what you see on the news. When the stock market drops, that's the news. When someone says something stupid, that's the news. When something terrible happens, that's the news. But what that does, and this is really what I want to emphasize to you and make clear, what that does is make you feel like you live in public instead of in private. When your news was only in the morning and maybe in the afternoon, the rest of the day was news-free and you lived in private. And you estimated your life by your relationships, by your thoughts, by your reading, by whatever it was that you did for your job. In other words, by your own metric. When you're constantly plugged in, not only to everything, but to everyone, when your Facebook feed assaults you every minute of the day, then it's harder to live in private. It's harder to be who you are. One of the blessings of Shabbat is that Shabbat is a time when we are able to live in private, when we can actually reflect on who we are and not constantly be bombarded by the stories and pictures and tales of everyone else's life, and also by the drumbeat of negativity that goes for news. There is much to be savored and to be grateful for in this world. If you are alive and breathing and you see the sunset and you can watch the sunrise, if you have enough to eat and a roof over your head, if you have people whom you love and people who love you, then there's a lot to be grateful for. I know that it's hard. I know that there are tremendous challenges, even unprecedented challenges in the world right now. And so I'm suggesting that you create a certain cone of silence and privacy where you can just be you, where you don't always have to be subject to the opinions, the events, the tragedies of other people, people whom you don't know, people close and far away. There is a place in this world, not only for the grand public events, which are important and which we speak about all the time, but also for the private meditations of the soul. To hear your inner music, to hear your spiritual harmony, to take a breath, to have a Shabbos. I hope over the next 25 hours that you'll take a moment for you and recognize that creation is big and various and full of wonders and filled with moments where we can breathe and we can feel ourselves in stillness, in prayer, in connection, in faith. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you so much, Rabbi Wolpe. We'll continue and we'll ask God to help us find this sense of peace with Oseh Shalom. We'll ask Daniel Reichman to lead Oseh Shalom with one of his original melodies.
Say Shalom, Shalom, say Shalom, Mibroma. Say Shalom, Shalom, say Shalom, Mibroma. Say Shalom.
Thank you so much, Danny. In love, we remember those who no longer walk this earth. We are grateful to God for the gift of their lives, for the cherished memories which yet endure. This week, we mark the passing of Eileen Rosenblatt, who passed away on the 10th of June, wife of Samuel Rosenblatt, Zichrono Livracha, and mother of Albert and Willie Rosenblatt. This week, for the 21st through 27th of Sivan, we mark the Yortzites of Shachrola Azda, Dali Burkett, Jack Berman, David Buxbaum, Harry Shanani, David Chernoff, Jacob Chersky, Etta Cohen, Victor Cohen, Dorothy Cohn, Julius Da'ar, Yosef Delshad, Serena Drexler, Ezat Elihu, Mehdi Farouri, Max Feld, Shirley Goldstein, Aziza Gachaim, Siva Hamburger, Pearl Hausman, Cheyenne Hayenpour, Yis'ag Hayenpour, Shamsi Hekmat, Gerald Jones, Sidney Kalik, Loyal Kaplan, Sophia Katz, Harry Klein, Elihu Cohen, Sanford Kornglue, Pearl Cooperstein, Dawood Lally, Brian Leonard, Dora Levine, Helen Lewin Prince, Hirsch Lieb Bainenfeld, Hannah Lippert, Samuel Luber, Jared Scott, Mandel Becker, Faribors Matlub, Mildred Migdal, Farahan Morad Zagdej, Malek Mosanen, Jamile Nazarian, Nasser Nemanpour, Rose Nezbeski, Habibola Noyan, Regina Oppenheimer, Max Rafe, Jacob Rajanpour, Maluk Rajanpour, Beatrice Rittenberg, Belle Robin, Hag Nazir Roshan, Jacob Ruder, Albert Sanders, Javaher Saraf, Nava Saraf, Eshagpour, Shifra Schwartz, Harriet Silverstein, Fanny Singer, Muriel Singer, Igor Sinekiewicz, Sari Snow, Lillian Sobel, Aaron Spelling, Louis Stein, Irene Steinbach, Evelyn Strom, Jacob Turner, Clara Walker, Morris Watkin, Gertrude Weinstock, Herman Wilstein, Ida Wish, Izzat Unesi, and Lena Zukin. If you're saying the Mourner's Kaddish in mourning for any reason, I invite you to rise, and you can say the words of the Mourner's Kaddish with me on page 58. Yit Gadal ve'yit Kadash Shmei Rabbah. Be'ama divrach Hirute ve'yamlich Mahute. Be'chayechon u'byomechon u'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'bizman kariv ve'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam U'lamei Almaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitromam ve'yitnaseh. Ve'yit hadar, ve'yit aleh, ve'yit halal, shmei de kudsha brichu, le'ela, min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da amiran ve'alma ve'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya, ve'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'romav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru amen. We pray to God for healing to those with broken hearts. And let us say amen. Okay. Shabbat shalom, everybody. It is a very exciting Friday Night Live, not only because of all of the amazing guest musicians we have, but also because this Shabbat we are welcoming our new Atid director, who we are extremely excited for. And it is now my great pleasure to invite her to speak and introduce herself, Brianna Ben Aaron. Welcome to Atid.
Hi, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. My name is Brianna Monkarsh Ben Aaron, and I'm thrilled to be here tonight with you all as the new Atid director. I am incredibly excited about the future of Atid and look forward to getting to know each of you. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you, Brianna. Welcome. Why don't we do an unplanned for Simon Tov Mazel Tov just to kind of celebrate your being here? Okay. Cancer, why don't you do it? This is kind of your thing. Take it away.
I can do that. I've done that a couple times.
Siman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, siman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, siman tov, mazel tov, mazel tov, siman tov, ye'elanu, 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 lechol Yisrael, ye'elanu, ye'elanu, lechol Yisrael, David melech Yisrael. And welcome.
Mazel Tov and welcome. The future of Atid is bright, brighter than ever. So thank you all for joining us at the Ted and Hedy Orden and Family Friday Night Live. We're going to close our service with Cantor Feldman and friends leading us in our closing song.
So one of the hardest aspects for me of being through this pandemic and isolation is you cannot make live music together. It's unfortunate that our technology isn't quite there yet. I pray that we'll be allowed to be gathered together in person before we need the technology to do that. But we are going to try to make music together. We're going to go around the virtual room here, going and sharing the beautiful words and melody by Matisyahu. Sometimes I lay under the moon and thank God I'm breathing. Then I pray, don't take me soon, because I'm here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it'll all turn around, because all my life I've been praying for, I've been waiting for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars and our children will pay.
One day, one day, one day.
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 All my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more wars and our children will play.
One day, one day, one day.
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 One day, one day, one day. One day.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat
Have
Shalom.
a wonderful, wonderful Shabbat. Remember, we're all together here in the wilderness, walking through this together, and we're going to make it. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Bye, everybody.